Well, hey, folks, a lot of you know that I've become friends with Dr. Phil McGraw over the years. He's convinced me to write my book, Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult, after he surprised me on the Dr. Phil show by reintroducing me to a few of the child survivors from Ogden's Zion Society cult. That was an incredible experience for me and very emotional, but I want to welcome my friend Dr. Phil McGraw.
Hey, Mike's always great to talk to you. We've worked together countless times over the years, and you are always such a great help. And I'm so excited to have you helping on Dr. Phil Primetime when we're covering true crime stories. There's no one better, and I think this is a really important issue you're discussing at the Utah Crime Conference.
Well, you are incredibly kind to me, Dr. Phil, and I just want to remind you that I'm speaking on the topic of leveraging the true crime community as part of a Utah Crime Conference get together. It's here in Ogden, Utah, where I live, and I wanted to have you take on a few of these topics as part of this discussion. I really appreciate you jumping in on this video chat. Now, as you're aware, the true crime community has grown into this pretty powerful collective of engaged, passionate people who often devote their time and their resources to looking into cold cases. The problem is sometimes they do it without any guidance, and other times they get a little bit of a tip here and there. Now, given your experience in human behavior and criminal justice matters, do you think that law enforcement using the media is wise, and can they actually help in closing these unsolved cases? I mean, is it responsible and constructive?
Oh, Mike, absolutely. I think the partnership between law enforcement and responsible platforms in the media is so important. And I have worked with law enforcement in partnership a number of times where my producers and myself have really collaborated with law enforcement to actually help solve cases. I recall one, Mark Castellano, who actually admitted to us that he killed his missing girlfriend before he even told the police. In fact, he called us from the police station because he was so uncomfortable having lied about what he had done when I was interviewing him at his parents' home in Texas, and he wanted to get that off of his chest. And of course, it was all being recorded by the police and by my producer, Sarah Cardin, on our end. So it just came to fruition, and we solved such a tragic case. It was a great partnership. Then there was a case of a missing teen girl named Erica Parsons, whose adopted parents failed lie detector tests on our show and were later found guilty of murdering her. And then there was the tragic case of Dylan Redwine, to name just a few. That was a case in Durango, Colorado that we worked on for years until we finally got to the bottom of that, again, in concert with law enforcement. So the partnership between the media's platform to get the word out and get people paying attention and getting that information to law enforcement really works well together, and you're one of the best at doing that.
Well, thanks a lot for saying that, Doc. But I wanted to take a moment and talk about the Angela Green case as an example of the integrity that you've shown and the way in which we've been able to work together on your show and maybe help law enforcement with a little bit of additional information. In fact, I'm going to show some clips on that during this presentation, but I wanted to talk about this case because Angela Green's daughter, Ellie, reached out to you and your team after she suspected that her father had murdered her mother in Kansas. And we discovered some things that, frankly, were really important to the investigation. They also could have been really cool to release on your global, worldwide television program. And as we hit this crossroads, we talked it through, and at that point I really came to respect you because you said we were going to do the right thing, not the best thing for media, but the right thing for the investigation. You didn't blink an eye when I said this case needed to remain in the hands of law enforcement, especially this new evidence that we'd uncovered, and not publicized by the show. I really do appreciate you for that. And I wondered if you wanted to share some thoughts about this relationship between law enforcement and responsible media platforms like yours.
Mike, is such a great point, and there are so many now with the proliferation of the internet where we have influencers and just passionate fans that are plugging into these stories, that they can be a big help, but they can also be an impediment if they're spreading conspiracy theories or they're trying to over dramatize something. I really encourage those folks to be responsible, and if they get information, to not try to get a big scoop, but to get law enforcement involved right away, because contamination can happen and information can leak out, and those people that are responsible can be tipped off by that and cover their tracks, or they can disappear, or things can happen to witnesses or evidence. So citizen journalism is really an important part of getting this done. And I'm so glad that so many people are involved in this, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. You can be a huge impediment if you just try and get clicks and spread lots of rumors, but you can also be a great help if you do it the right way, gather the information, share it with law enforcement, and let me tell you, they're really appreciative of that and will include those that help by giving them exclusives as they move along and unfold the case. So I'm glad there are so many people involved, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And actually, most of those that really are involved do it the right way and have been a big help. So I think it's a good thing.
Doc, part of what I'm covering here in the crime conference is this discussion about this huge number of social media influencers, people on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and so many others. And I think we showed how powerful social media influence can be when we looked into the Dennis Wustenhoff family's case to revisit the unsolved murder of Detective Wustenhoff 30 plus years ago. And for people listening in on our conversation, I want to just remind you, Dennis's widow and his children reached out to me asking that their story be told. They were looking at a new district attorney in the area, and they wanted to get the story out in front of the media in hopes that the killer would be brought to justice. I mean, these kinds of things are really risky for families, and they're even riskier for law enforcement officers who've systematically been trained over the years to avoid the media and color inside the lines. What kind of advice do you have for not only the social media influencers, but for investigators who are toying with the idea of having social media or mainstream media help them in telling their story, and most importantly, in asking for tips and leads?
Yeah, I think one of the best examples is when the word went out looking for Gabby Petito out in the wilderness, and people just looking at their pictures that they were taking just caught a little corner picture of the van, and then someone else looked at theirs, and sure enough, they identified where that was. And had it not been for all of these people that were documenting their own trips and posting and sharing, I'm not sure that this thing would have been solved nearly as quickly or maybe at all. So, this was a great example of people that really cared and really wanted justice to be served that helped a lot. So thank God for those people that care and responsibly communicate what they know to law enforcement.
Well, Doc, as we wrap up, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank you for the opportunity I've had to work for you and work alongside you in the last 4 years. It's been really an incredible journey for me to learn from your expertise and to kind of garner and grow from your wisdom as well. It's interesting because you bring some difficult cases forward, but you also help bring awareness to unsolved tragedies. And I'm grateful for the trust that you've placed in me in being able to participate in so many of these cases. Now, as you know, I'm speaking to a group of law enforcement officers, and this video clip, although edited, is going to be played in front of them at the conclusion of my presentation. But I wanted to give you a chance to share some final thoughts that you might have for those officers that are attending this thing. Now, there are a lot of support personnel attending this as well. So I hope that you'll share this as we close out our conversation together.
Well, listen, thanks, Mike. It's always great to talk to you. Keep doing what you do. And I want to give a special shout out to all those in law enforcement in Utah. They are among the best in the country. And I think Utah law enforcement know I bleed blue. I always stand up for law enforcement. They put those uniforms on every day. Those men and women stand in the gap to keep the rest of us safe. I thank you, all of us thank you. And sometimes that doesn't get the headlines, but we appreciate law enforcement. We appreciate you men and women. And those of you in Utah that do it, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Mike, thank you for what you do.